We know it's been a great morning full of a lot of really good, wonderful information, and if you're like me, this is the first of the different economic overviews that I've been to, so it's interesting to hear last year's numbers. I'm Greg Valadeo with Cushman & Wakefield. I'm a 25-year industry veteran. I do some investment sales. I own some property, retail as well as multifamily. I've done some angel investing, so I kind of have my fingers in a lot of pies. So I'd like to start by introducing our panel. First, we've got Chuck Wells. Chuck is a 30-year industry veteran. He specializes in tenant rep, really restaurateurs and the hospitality industry. Past and current clients include Chipotle, Wildflower, Marriott, Hilton, Choice Brands,
Buffalo Wings, Texas Roadhouse, etc.
Yeah, so Chuck's been around even longer than I have, which makes me feel pretty good.
Were you 12 when you started, Chuck?
So we've got Steve Julius. Steve is the first vice president at CBRE. Also a industry veteran. He does investment sales and specializes in the private client group, deals from 1 to 20 million for the most part. He's done a lot of deals. I think he's at last count about 158 deals.
Yeah, about that. Yep.
Somewhere in that range. He and I have been friendly competitors for many years and like and respect each other. So we've got.
I don't know that. I talk crap about you behind your back.
Well, we're competitors. So wait for that meeting. Yes. We've got Kalen Rickard. Kalen is the. I guess using the word token is not politically correct, but he is our token millennial. He started in the business in 2007. As I was actually taking I think that's when I started my sabbatical, my 3-year sabbatical when things got really ugly. So he primarily does agency leasing in that he represents private shopping center owners, Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 owners. So he is a wealth of knowledge as far as on the leasing side.
33 years old, 85. That makes me the oldest millennial in the room.
And last but certainly not least, we have Chris Hake. Chris is a new transplant to Phoenix, basically. Came from Indianapolis. He is with a company called Thompson Thrift. Is that the Tommy Thompson of old?
No.
No, okay. Because there was a legendary guy in the industry named Tommy Thompson who was quite an interesting character. So he came from Indianapolis. Prior to being with Thompson, he was with Duke Realty, who they don't have much of a presence in Phoenix, but they're one of the largest real estate companies in the country. So what I'd really like to do is, since Chris is the newbie to town, if you could give us a little insight into yourself and what your company does. He does the regional development for 7 western states?
Yeah, our team here in Phoenix, we focus purely on the Southwest. So we're day-to-day in obviously Arizona, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, doing some stuff in Texas, recently Idaho. But as a company, we're a 30-plus-year-old development construction company. We have a retail division, a multifamily division. I run our Southwest retail group, but we're active in about 15 states between multifamily and retail throughout the Southeast, Southwest, and obviously the Midwest.
Thanks. Well, one of the first things I want to do also is I'm going to rename this panel, and I'm going to call it the Elliott Pollock Retail Pushback Panel. Because he was very flowery on everything that's gone on in Phoenix, and he got to retail, and he just kind of said, it is what it is. Well, if that's his thoughts, I want to ask these 4 panelists why you're in an industry that is destined to fail if you believe the fake news, and I don't care whether you're listening to AM radio or FM radio, the reality is retail is not dead, retail is not dying. So seriously, why don't you guys give me each a couple of bullet points on why you believe in retail, where it is today, and we'll talk about where it's going. And as part of what we're going to do today, we're going to look at some broad trends. We're going to look at some Phoenix numbers, talk about some new developments, and then we'll get into some specifics that when you leave, we'd like you to walk away and be our ambassadors to the world, knowing that bricks and mortar retail is strong and getting stronger. So Chuck, why retail?
Retail is one of those industries that is always changing as the consumer changes. It's never static. The minute I think I have it figured out, I realize I don't have it figured out, because trends change, attitudes change, shopping behaviors change. We're always changing to react to that. So it's you wake up every day wondering what's going to happen today, because it's different than it was yesterday. So it keeps it exciting for me.
Good.
Yeah, I agree. So most of my business is the neighborhood retail centers, right? So it's the grocery centers, it's the little strip malls, it's the things that kind of drive our daily needs. And so those things aren't going away. Although, I mean, there's obviously some headwinds with retail right now, and the way the internet is affecting things and the malls and so forth. But, you know, personally, I'm not selling the malls. I'm selling the kind of the neighborhood strip centers. So people still need their places to, you know, eat, get their nails done, get their hair done, take their kid to karate lessons, whatever it might be. So, I mean, you know.
I was actually shopping online for a haircut the other day. Couldn't find it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was too.
So what you're referring to is a term that now the industry pundits are calling it necessity-based retail. And that's a term that...
The other buzzword we're hearing is the internet-resistant retail.
Right.
You know, restaurant space, grocery stores, fitness facilities that are going like crazy around the market, the entertainment users. Contrary to what the Wall Street Journal wants to tell you, or the New York Times when you read it, people don't want to sit in a dark closet in the back room of their house and have the light emitting from their computer 24 hours a day. They want to get out, they want to socialize and be around other beings, and you know, that's exactly why I'm in retail. And I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity as we move forward in retail, because there is repositioning of assets that were problematic, and how we go forward. So,
good. Chris, why build retail if we're overbuilt?
Why build retail? Because the demographics show that we have to continue to build, that people are moving around, the different municipalities, they're changing, we're repositioning assets. So in order for all of us, at least up here, to continue to have a job, we have to continue to build retail.
Yeah.
Okay, if it wasn't to keep you self-employed, would you be building retail? And what are you building in particular? Like, are you doing restaurants, are you doing neighborhood centers, are you doing power centers?
Power centers, we've done a lot of those in our company's history. I don't want to say all but moved away from that, but we've moved significantly away from it. So we're looking at more of the experience retail, where it's restaurants, where it's fitness centers, where it's movie theaters, that type of thing, where you can come in and have a center activated for more than just one part, more than somebody just going to TJ Maxx. There's got to be more of a draw to keep you there. So that's a little bit more of what we're gravitating towards. Given that we have a multifamily group, mixed use is a good buzzword for our company. It allows us to go in, and in today's climate, a call it 10-acre retail site is a big project where we're at today. So a lot of property owners, they have more land than that, they don't want to carve it up. So at least for us as a firm, going in and say, hey, we have a solution for all 20 acres is very appealing. So that's the type of stuff that we're looking at today.
And if I can jump in, what I like about what's being built today for retail is that no one's doing anything speculative anymore, right? No one's, you know, just building a shopping center of 50,000 feet with no anchor and just seeing what shows up. You know, it has to be now led by a tenant, a key couple tenants. And for you guys, you know, whether it's grocery or it's a restaurant or a Starbucks little strip center pad with you know, a drive-through on it, those things, every project has to be led by a tenant. No one's going to bank you. No one's going to, your partners and investors aren't going to go forward with the project just saying, oh, well, we're going to build it just to see what shows up for tenants. So everything is smart these days. Everyone's building a center that they know they can fill up. And that's why we're not overbuilding right now. I mean, our numbers are back compared to 2005 when we were building, you know, 11 million square feet of retail, and now we're, you know, been well less than 1 million for, you know, several years in a row. We're smart about it. We're being, you know, we're not overbuilding anymore, which I like.
Good. let's talk about some of the horror stories of the past where for years we would hear about closures. I really haven't heard much about closures recently. And we hear a little bit about Sears, but is that cycle over? Cycle of closures over?
It seems that there was, back when we were building the 10 million square feet, there's a lot of duplication in the street. We didn't need 2 fabric stores on every corner. We didn't need 2 whatever on every corner. So when those started failing, there was some backfill there. Some of those boxes are still something out there being backfilled now with some new tenants coming in. So I think that your question being, are we overbuilding? Are we
Are we? Regardless of what we're building, my question is really: are we going to see headlines over the next 18 or 24 months of so and so's closing? Because we saw for a while we were tracking big box closures. That was kind of people made it a business just to track those big box closures.
Well, the headlines for the last decade, as I've been in this business, have mentioned JCPenney, Sears, Dillard's, the big box mall retailers going out. That story hasn't changed. And in fact, I think that story is going to lead to more opportunity for some of these malls to be able to add the office component, to be able to add the multifamily component, the theater component, to kind of transition those malls into the 2020 and beyond position. So the closures that we're seeing are just opportunities for those centers rather than, and they've been the headline that's been there for the last decade plus.
So outside the mall realm of the anchors, is there any specific product type or that you think that there's risk out there right now?
I'll go for that. The biggest thing right now that I see within the restaurant side of it is that we've been saturated for a while with the number of restaurants out there. I mean, I only eat 1 lunch a day. There's more options now. So we're seeing some cycling there. We've seen, especially some of those older chains, Ruby Tuesdays, the Applebee's, they're Logan's, they're gone, they're shrinking. There's always backfill for those at good locations. But the biggest thing I think they're suffering right now, and what I deal with, is just the labor laws right now. We're at $11 a square foot on minimum wage. In Texas, I had this conversation yesterday with a client. He's got market partners here. They're begging him to transfer them to Texas because by the time he does his balance sheet at the end of the year, he's paying $11 here for front of house and back of house. In Texas, he's paying $213 front of house and $750 back of house, the tip credit in front of house. He goes, that same manager can make $75,000 more a year managing a store in Texas than he can in Arizona. So these labor laws are really hurting us right now in the restaurant industry. It's a third of your labor's a third of your expenses, and it just got doubled. I was talking to a guy at a Pizza Hut franchisee. His labor is now taking $1.6 million from his bottom line. He has multiple units. So these are big issues in that industry. Now, still have to eat. So it's one of those concepts that will adjust. I mean, we're already seeing now with more automation, stuff like that. But that's their big. When I'm in the car with them driving around, that's their number one gripe right now is labor.
Well, and I think that there's always going to be store closures. I think that in restaurants there's a lot of categories I watch out there. I just feel like that it's a competitive market. So whether it's a big box store or a restaurant, you're always competing against someone. There's always going to be someone who's going to win or lose in that battle of competitive nature. In restaurants, that's just it, right? There's going to be winners and losers. Yeah, you're going to see some store closures. There's the poke restaurants are hot. The gelato and frozen ice cream stuff was frozen yogurt was hot for a while, and then all these fast order pizza restaurants, and there's a lot of these franchises that all kind of come at the same time. There's going to be winners and losers. There's a lot of big box gyms out there right now, and they're pretty favored right now, and landlords like them. I think it sounds like they're doing well, but there's also a lot of them at the same time that are filling up some of our boxes. There's going to be some winners and losers there too. So I think we're always going to have some closures.
Well, with the restaurants, when our existing clients are looking at do we put in some additional capital into restaurants, the conversion of a restaurant with bones is significantly faster from a lease-up perspective than a space that's in shell condition or in the vanilla shell. All of the restaurant operators, first and foremost, are going to want something that has bones because there's significant investment into that space.
So when you're talking bones, you're talking
hoods, grease traps, walk-in coolers, plumbing systems, restrooms, that a typical shell space isn't going to have. It's specialized for a restaurant. Now, are they going to come in and change their decor package and change their tables and lighting and whatever it may be? Of course they are. They're going to change it and make it their own. But the back-of-house area, which is truly the expensive part of the build-out, already has a majority of the function that they need from a restaurant.
So what I'm hearing as a group is that other than what we've heard about in the past, we're going to see some normal transition of spaces, but there's nothing imminent on the horizon that we feel is like a big bugaboo that can come out and bite us.
No, I think our growth is our best story to tell right now.
Yep.
I had a client I haven't talked to in 4 years, said, how's Phoenix doing? And I threw out a few facts, but I wasn't really up to speed on it. So I spent the next week kind of pulling all this information together about the growth, the cost of living here, the influx of new people, the job growth. And I think we got to rebuild our brand a little bit, I think. I think people that are in this market and haven't looked at it for a while, they still heard the old story.
Yeah.
So we all need to do a better job to growth, I think, telling the new story.
And we heard great stories all day today.
Yeah.
Everyone's very positive. What's going on in this market is why people have continued to move here, because it is a very nice, 300 plus days of sunshine, great infrastructure, especially if you compare us to states where people are coming from, including California, New York, the Midwest.
Yeah, job growth is amazing.
And the job growth has been different than this time. Looking at Elliot's slides, and I'm a huge Elliot fan. I've tracked his stuff for years, and actually I have most of his slides. It was interesting because up until the last 24 months, the job growth was different this time than past cycles, in that he all of a sudden he was showing construction jobs, and that really wasn't what we had. This cycle was different in that we had a lot of white collar
financial
jobs that we haven't really had, high tech that we haven't had in the past. So just to set the record straight, and then we're going to talk through some numbers. 2018 holiday sales were fantastic. We did $850 billion, which is the highest retail sales that we've had in the last 6 years. It was up 5.1% over 2017, while the projections were that it was going to be about 4.5%. Investment firms across the country are recommending that institutional and private investors, especially the high net worth families, basically make investments in necessity-based retail, which we talked about, which is grocery, bank, hair salons, dry cleaners, and other services that can't be replaced online. And while e-commerce is growing, the fastest sector of that e-commerce growth is coming from bricks and mortar retailers. So let's take a look at the numbers. Don't have the slides, we're just going to talk through them. Which is fine, actually.
We had all these really cool graphs.
Yeah, we had really cool slides. It would have been much better if we had had the slides. But so our vacancy rate, where are we vacancy?
8.5%.
8.5%, which is
That's great.
Which is considering the fact that inside those numbers we have probably about 3 million square feet. There's about 9 million of vacancy. About 3 million of that is probably mall-type boxes that are not going to be backfilled. It's a Fiesta Mall, it's a Metro Center, where there would be conversion or blades. So about 3 million of that.
Which I think is a great thing. Right? Again, it's the way that we're evolving with retail, and we're actually, a lot of these things, we're taking retail off the market. Right? We're taking retail space away because it's getting torn down for an apartment.
We lost 1 million square feet of retail last year, but that's good.
Yeah,
it's a functionally obsolete product.
And we're not overbuilding it. Yeah, so it's a nice balance that we have right now.
Asking lease rates, we are basically, it was up last year 12 cents, and this is a very broad number because it includes everything from a lifestyle center where you might have $60 rents to a big box that might be single digit. Was up 12 cents at $14.98 per square foot. We feel really good about that because I did an economic overview for an ICSC event in March of 2014, and I had to stand up there and talk about we had 22 consecutive quarters, not months, quarters of falling retail rents, which was brutal. That's over 5 years. So
we're a tough one.
That was a tough one. And you know,
the other thing on those asking rents to take into consideration is a lot of the A+ prime space that the tenants are demanding, that are demanding the highest prices in the market, aren't reflected in those asking rents because they're occupied.
Very good point. Do you do any work in North Scottsdale? What's the vacancy in the high-end North Scottsdale? Just throw something.
You know, probably right around 5%.
Well, you got the one project there for the north side and the 101 with a lot of, where the sporting goods store, the Sprouts went out. I mean, there is some vacancy boxes up there that'd be hard to backfill. But overall, I mean, if you've got a tenant search up there, it's hard to find good space that works. It's around the corner. It's not up front. The rents are high. The TIs are low. So it's in pretty good shape, actually. I mean, there's certain sub-markets there where you can find space on every intersection.
Sure.
Certain sub-markets where it seems like they all want to tour the hardest spots to find locations. Everybody comes to town and we want to be in North Scottsdale. I'm going, are you sure? There's other places where you're wanted better than North Scottsdale because the pie just gets a little thinner every time another restaurant opens up there. Like I said, you only eat 2.5 meals a day if you have breakfast, right? I mean,
well, and North Scottsdale is a little different animal because retail is all about demographics, and it's not just income, it's density. And when you get to certain areas of North Scottsdale, especially north of the Loop, the homes are spread out and the densities really aren't there. And it doesn't matter if you have a $5 million home, it doesn't mean you're going to eat lunch more than once a day. You'd much rather have Northwest Phoenix, where your densities are significantly higher, even though your incomes are significantly lower, although they're not low, they're still very positive up there. And so it's, there's a little bit of a dichotomy of you've got to be careful about what you wish for. So absorption last year, 1.7, 1.8, depends on whose number you look at last year. Primarily in Northwest Phoenix and the Southwest Valley. You guys want to talk about kind of what happened in those two submarkets that really accounts for most of that absorption?
Yes, certainly I'll chime in and do a lot of work in Northwest Phoenix and the Southwest Valley as well. One of the big reasons that a vast majority of our absorption happened in those submarkets was there had been such a flight to all of the product in the Southeast Valley as the jobs in Scottsdale, as the jobs and incomes were there, that really there was an opportunity for a lot of these retailers to go and look in those different submarkets. There's also the affordability of homes, and as the saying goes, retail follows rooftops. There's rooftops being built in those areas. And so, necessity, needs-based shopping needs to go in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys built down in Queen Creek. I mean, I feel like that market's hot right now because of all the home growth, Gilbert and so forth. The Northwest Valley's got a lot of home growth as well. That's where you see some of these new projects going. I don't know, jumping around on development and so forth, but I mean, we'll have, obviously we got, the new 202 freeway coming through. You guys were talking about some of the projects that are falling around down there. Mm-hmm. I don't chase the developers too much myself, but I mean, you can see that, again, I think we're doing things smarter this time, that we're building shopping centers and new centers where there's already people are moving in. Last time when we got in trouble is that they were building shopping centers where they thought homes were going to go, where home builders owned the land, but there weren't actually structures there yet, or if there weren't bodies in the buildings.
Or the homes were owned by investors.
Yeah, true. Right. So then those shopping centers had a tough go because there weren't shoppers. Now I think we're doing it the right way. I mean, we're waiting for the homes to be built, and then we're adding the shopping center, knowing that the demand is there.
So as far as new build, we built 650,000 square feet of new product last year. So Chris, where are we building and why?
Well, I think it goes back to the last question. It's the Southeast Valley, it's the Northwest side, just because you have that home growth. If you look at the statistics and percentage of new home starts, those are probably two of the highest percentage areas in Metro Phoenix. So you see a lot of developers chasing those rooftops in those areas. So probably if you look at I think we did have a graph that showed some of where that 600,000+ is, a good amount of that are in those two areas.
Well, the Southeast Valley, Southwest, and Northwest are the areas I'm focused on right now for taking tenants. I mean, that's where they're underserved and have the most desire for a product showing up and appreciating it. Rather than go to the saturated areas and try and make your niche, go to the areas that aren't saturated, build your clientele up, take care of them, and you'll be fine. I mean, when I was doing Smashburger's work, our best stores we opened were in North Scottsdale. They were in the Camelback corridor. They were at Queen Creek and Northeast Mesa. I mean, Queen Creek was 30% higher above every other store's market average when we opened down there. Now, the problem with that is everybody hears about it, so all the competition shows up. And once again, the pie gets cut a little thinner for everybody. But really, I mean, it's just, as a tenant rep guy, you go where are you wanted. Not supposed where you think you need to be, where do they want you, and where are they going to be patronize you, or not patronize, but build up their business with you.
So we built 600 or almost 700,000 square feet last year. In 2007, we built 12 million, and I think the difference is that we were following freeways, and it was driven by the large box retailers, in that you'd have Walmart on one corner and anchored with Home Depot. Then across the street you'd have a Lowe's, and they chased freeway exits without as much concern for rooftops. And if you look at what happened on far West Phoenix on the I-10, Sterling Falls, and some of the big Vestar projects, some of the stuff that Walt Brown and his group did along the 60, the retailers didn't do well.
Yeah, we're not building that stuff anymore. We're not building power centers anymore, which was so much of that square footage. For me in the investor world, I mean, investors are still a little skittish of the boxes, right? I mean, and just because of the closures and I think there's the footprints are getting smaller. There's fewer of them out there, and so when they're looking at these big box spaces, they're getting a little bit concerned on, well, if I lose one, who's there to backfill it? And I remember when Sports Authority, shut down all their locations here. I was surprised how quickly all those got filled up. I mean, there's still some of that demand out there, but I think, with the development numbers, that's why, no one's building power centers anymore, because they're not the favorite, asset class.
It's not only you lose one, who do I backfill with? Is I lose one, how many more do I lose because of co-tenancy clauses?
Good point.
I mean, that's a huge challenge to those power centers.
And the cost to re-tenant them.
Yeah.
If you have to split one in half, the cost of that.
You take a box that has some generally good credit with it and backfill it with a trampoline park.
Yep.
Not that appealing.
Right.
Well, and the CCR restrictions that are along with that. I mean, if you lose a credit box tenant in a power center, and now I'm looking through my list of exclusives and restrictions that I have to go through to find the needle in the haystack, I can't do the trampoline park. I can't do the movie theater in that space. I can't do the kids' entertainment facility.
So
you can you just need to sign off from Ross.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so what happened last time is that the tenants, you couldn't build without the tenants. The tenants basically held all the cards, and they basically put in CCR restrictions and co-tenancy clauses that made it very, very restrictive if your center ended up in trouble. And even a lot of the vacancies you see today, let's say Metro Center, for example, there are CCNRs in place where one anchor tenant can keep other people from going into other projects. So
you look at the Fiesta Mall area.
Fiesta Mall is a perfect example.
The development that could potentially happen on that 86-acre site there with multifamily and office, and they've got their hands tied by some of these failing concepts, the Sears, JCPenney's, and whatnot, where those could have viable retail components to them that aren't going to be a regional mall ever again.
Okay, so new freeways going in right now. We have the 303, we have the 202 bypass around Phoenix. What's happening along those intersections? What are we? And has the development model changed from the last cycle to where we are today?
I think absolutely it's changed. I mean, you're still going to chase good intersections, good corners, etc. But the days, not only in Arizona, but across the country, of 50, 60, 100-acre projects that are all retail. I mean, you could probably count those on definitely one hand throughout the country at this point. So, like retailers that are downsizing.
Pavilions, how long is that taking? I'm doing a Texas Roadhouse out at the David, and they all look at a real estate community and they go, okay, I see my traffic here, but what does it go over here on this side? There's nobody there but farmland or community land. So I think it will be a definite boon for Levine. I've liked Levine for a lot of years now. It's just an underserved area. There's pride of ownership down there. I mean, most people don't drive it down there, but when you get down there, you're going like, I get it now. So I think, you know, the new sprouts coming down there is going to be fantastic, and the product that goes around it. There's a project on the north side plant, one adjacent to the plans. So it has employment here too.
Who's doing the Sprout Center, and what's it?
Kitchell's doing that.
What's it composed of?
Sprouts, a proposed theater to the backside. It's been on again, off again. I don't know where it's at right now. I've asked for a while. Some retail pads, some shop pads, right at the hard southeast corner of the freeway baseline.
The difference I think where you're going with that, the difference in our development cycle this year is we're not building a 30,000 square foot anchor with 50,000 square feet of shops anymore. We're building a 30,000 square foot anchor with 12,000 square foot of shops and a couple of pads.
That's where I was going, because I had a great 10-year run selling, when we were building 20, 25 grocery anchored centers a year, and they were all the same prototype. And there were 5 or 6 guys building them, teams building them, and basically it would have a 30 to 50,000 square foot anchor, and you'd have, it'd be 100,000 square feet with a couple of pads and a heck of a lot of shops. And what I'm seeing Kitchell and other people do now is that maybe 10, 12,000 square feet of shop buildings, not even maybe one building attached, but most of them are out on pads, and it lowers their risk profile.
Hey, by the way, we got the 5-minute warning up here.
So the difference now too on the shops too, and why there's less demand is back in the last cycle, the mom and pops are using their homes as ATM machines to pull money out to open up their little boutique shop there, or become a franchisee of whatever they want to become. And when that dried up and the housing market crashed, they all turned into keys. So I think the developers learned their lesson too. It's got to be more sustainable growth, more realistic tenants with experience, as opposed to tenants with just here to check that I took a home equity loan out and have no experience. So they're being more cautious.
Okay, with 5 minutes left, a couple of things I want to hit. One, I want to talk about the retail investment market, because for most in the industry, you do well when you own a shopping center, but you're really buying it for the appreciation that you really don't recognize until there's a sale. So Steve, tell us a little bit about what's going on, especially in your market,
Sure.
Not the big institutional, right. Kind of the mom and pop. Are the deals happening? Give us a typical deal.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in the last 3 years, there's been about 115 transactions of multi-tenant retail centers.
Per year?
1 in 20 per year,
yeah.
Which is great. Those numbers are up about maybe 10 or 15% from before. So the velocity is good. The transaction volume is good. Cap rates, again, I had a really cool graph with the 12-year history of cap rates. But we obviously peaked out in the recession when everything was real high risk. We kind of bottomed out about 2-3 years ago when interest rates got really, really low. But now, since then, it's been kind of just floating around 7.5 cap rate for kind of your average strip.
If I can get debt at 5%, can I still get debt at 5%?
Yes, you can. Yep.
Get debt at 5%. Buy a center for 7.5 cap. Positive leverage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So get a yield 8, 8.5, 9.
Yeah, exactly. And then
who's buying them?
Yeah. So who's buying them is we have, and this hasn't changed over my 17-year career, but 39% of our buyers are coming from California. So that's the origin state of Phoenix shopping center transactions is mostly California, and really almost only 34% is coming from Arizona. So it's a lot of 1031 exchange buyers who are selling maybe another shopping center, but maybe they're also selling a medical building, they're selling some land, they're selling some apartments, and they're moving their capital to Phoenix because we've got better cap rates than California does. So a vast majority of our buyers are coming from out of state.
What would the same center sell for in California on a cap rate basis?
Probably 100 to 150 basis points lower. So if we're a 7.5 cap here, that seems just...
So they might be in a negative leverage position versus we're in a...
Yeah, and that's why they're coming here, I think, is because they can find that sort of opportunity out here, and we're we're much more reasonable. And there's a lot of choices too. We actually have a big market for for shopping centers. They have 115 deals to choose from each year. They're finding some deals to buy.
All right, kind of to wrap up a little bit, and I apologize for the cold. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about the whole bricks and mortar retailers versus the internet. So e-commerce last year accounted for only 9% of all retail sales. It was 8% in 2016. So it's gradually inching up. We recognize that. But the difference, this is what's interesting. Here's how online sales break out. On a percentage basis, who's doing those sales? Amazon, 48%. eBay, 7.2%. Walmart, 4%. Apple, 3.9%. Home Depot, 1.6%. Best Buy, 1.3%. And Macy's, 1.3%. Here's an interesting number. Only 28% of retailers even sell online. They haven't gotten into the business yet. So this holiday season, and these are numbers literally fresh, and actually it's only from November 1 to December 19th. In-store retail sales, in-store pickup sales for bricks and mortar retailers that were ordered online increased 47%. They've got two different segments. It's called Buy Online, Pick Up In Store, and BOSS, which is Buy Online, Ship to Store. With high-tech, large-ticket items, traditional retailers captured 47% of the market. And what that's telling us is that when you buy something over $500, that's not from a furniture manufacturer, that is a television or something like that, you want it to come from a retailer that you know. Walmart increased their December sales by 9% this year because of the internet. Most of these companies have just started moving into that business literally in the last 18 months. They weren't in it before. So when people talk about how internet sales are killing retail, it's not. The retailers were just slow to get to the game. Even in my house, I live in a consumer-based house, and then I'm the provider, and I've got two late teens, early 20s daughters, and a wife that's consumer, and they shop online, but they're shopping from traditional retailers online. Because there's a comfort to know that I can order it from a Nordstrom, it's going to come to my house, and if there's a problem, I can walk it back into Nordstrom versus just shipping it back. So
there's a couple other factors along with this e-commerce that I think are really important. I jotted down a couple of notes. One of the things from what Elliot Pollack said that I think is a big benefit for traditional retailers is he mentioned a comment anecdotally about how his wife has 3 boxes that are picked up every day, sends 4 boxes back. That last mile distribution and the expense of that for an Amazon at $100 a year, it's very expensive, and they're losing money on it. So they've got to look at alternative methods to get that last mile to the consumer there. That's why we saw them with a healthy investment in purchasing Whole Foods. The other interesting thing to note is 90% of the population is within 15 miles of Walmart. So Walmart's able to do that last mile distribution relatively easy as compared to UPS, USPS, or FedEx dropping it at somebody's door.
The other thing that happened in 2018, 2 things. 2017, restaurant sales surpassed grocery sales for the first time ever. And the other thing is that 3 times as many companies opened new stores in 2018 than companies closed stores.
I think to piggyback off that, when you look at Amazon, everybody freaks out over Amazon a lot. If they're going to kill retail, and to some extent they're right, but they're probably killing the obsolete retail. When Amazon's making up, or online sales is making up 10% of e-commerce, I believe in Sears' heyday, they were making up something in the teens % of
Yes.
total retail dollars. So Amazon isn't even there. So when
No, without question. Sears was a larger, in its heyday as a mail-order catalog, it was 5 times the size of Amazon.
So when Chuck was ordering stuff out of that catalog, but the other side of it is you see all these online retailers like Amazon that's going to open thousands of brick and mortar stores. You get Untuckit, who's now opening physical retail stores. Apple making a huge push to get more into physical retail stores. So there's a shift where a lot of brick and mortars are going online. A lot of online is going to brick and mortar.
And the reason those online retailers are adding brick and mortar stores, there's a perfect local company here that's disturbing the mattress industry, which is tough to needle. And when they open a physical retail store for somebody to come and try their product in the flesh, they see a 30% increase within 20 miles of that site in their sales and on their online clicks. So these online retailers, when people want to come in and go to Warby Parker and try on the glasses and see what they actually look like on their face, are seeing massive increases in the amount of sales that they're doing within a certain area of those physical retail stores.
Okay, so to wrap up really quick, positive, negative, positive, negative. Where do we stand on retail for 19, 20, 21? Because the retail cycle is a little quick longer than maybe an office or industrial cycle.
For 19, I think it's going to be fairly flat compared to the last couple of years, or at least last year. And then you're going to see a little uptick as you get into 2021.
I tend to agree. I think 19 is going to be a little bit more of the same. And as we start to see my generation, the millennials, own homes, have kids, you're going to see a soar in retail as that demographic shifts.
Yeah, I'm positive too. I think my bold prediction, everyone keeps talking about interest rates rising and then therefore cap rates rising. I just don't see it. I mean, like we've always been worried about interest rates. I mean, sure, they move around from time to time, but they've been gone crazy on us. So I think interest rates will stay pretty much the same, and therefore cap rates won't jump wildly either.
I'm very optimistic. I mean, just the fact of our growth here, the story you have to tell about how Arizona is the place to be, and I'd be less optimistic in California, Seattle, places where there's the out-migration. It's too expensive to live. People can't afford to be there, can't afford to go out to eat. So from what I'm doing, I mean, I've seen a lot of interest in this trade area, or see this market. So there's always going to be turnover. There's always going to be turnover. It's just a matter of every time it turns over, it gets a little bit better.
The one thing not to discount, construction costs. I know
Yeah, that was a big, we were going to have a long discussion about that. We're out of time, it's 12:30 already. But construction cost and labor in Phoenix, it's an issue. I mean, and we can't, regardless of what your thoughts are on the political spectrum, traditionally this country was built on immigrant labor, and we're struggling now because there's
no politics.
Yeah, it's not political. That's reality. So, but we thank you guys very much, and have a great day.